So we're here today, Sheldon Genealogy, with our first training video. And we're going to talk about using YDNA to bust down brick walls. And Chris Sheldon has agreed to be our guinea pig, and he's going to explain to us where he is in the process and what he hopes to gain from doing a YDNA test. Chris.
So for me, the interest really started, probably like for a lot of people, over quarantine. I spent a lot of time with my parents, which live out of the country, so I didn't really get to see them a whole lot. When they were here, my dad and I started a conversation about my great-grandfather, Grover. We didn't really know a whole lot about him, but one of the things that my great-grandma always told my dad about was someone in our family that had been a revolutionary captain, right? So after doing a little bit of research, the name Elijah came up, right? And I kind of went off from there. I hit a couple of dead ends here and there, kind of, I guess, preemptively jumping to conclusions about stuff and not really digging as deep as I really should have. But after meeting some people and digging a little bit deeper, I found that my lineage went back to a man named James, who was a resident of Pennsylvania in the early 1800s, right? He died about 1823. And from there, it kind of hit a dead end because there wasn't a lot of information about him specifically. There were wills, there were, bills of sale and things like that, but there wasn't really any concrete evidence about where he was from or who his parents were or anything that led any further back into history. So when I started looking at some of the British side of things, that's when some of the pieces started coming together. A lot of the same repeated names kept coming up. A lot of the same family names kept coming up. So it became very disorienting. So after that,
and let me break in here a second, Chris. This Revolutionary War ancestor, James Sheldon, he fought on which side?
So from the research that I've done, he actually fought for the British. He was captain at the Battle of Saratoga and surrendered there with General Burgoyne and the rest of the 9th Regiment of Foot, which he was captain of.
Okay.
But unfortunately, that's kind of where it stops. There isn't any information, or at least that I could find at the moment, revolving around his birth or even really what he was doing before he got into the military. So that's where the YDNA tests come in for me, because it gives me a little bit more of an idea of where he was from, right? Maybe more around the professions that were prominent at the time. I know that a lot of people out there were sheep farmers and stuff like that. So I'm really hoping to unlock some of those doors and get a little bit more information about where my family comes from, because in regards to my direct descendants or people that I may have been able to talk to in my life, my great-grandfather died before my granddad was even 7 years old. So there wasn't a lot of those orally passed down stories or traditions or anything like that. So for me, it was really refreshing, regardless of how much information I found or not, to be able to kind of put those pieces together and figure out who I am from all of that.
Right. And really your situation is a perfect example of where YDNA can unlock a mystery that we might not even be able to get to any other way, because we have quite a few members that have tested in the Family Tree DNA Sheldon project. We have these different clusters, which I showed on the earlier slide. I can show again. But should your results come in and you match one of those groups, then at least if you match group A, we are going to definitely be able to put you in Derbyshire, England. So that's going to give you a place on that side of the pond to start looking. Then we have probably 4 or 5 different groupings that are in Warwickshire that are different Sheldon families from there. Then we have a large group of Americans who hasn't found its group over in England, and you could match up with them. And then we have probably a dozen singleton Sheldons who haven't found their match yet. So there's lots of possibilities, and it will be exciting for all of us to find out which camp you fall into. And I would expect, let's see, your kit's been in for about a week or so, is that right?
Right. I checked on it the other day, and it said that they had started the testing on the 15th. So I'm hoping to get some results before Christmas.
You might get lucky and get results. I'd say in general, it's around 6 weeks, but it can be slower or faster depending on how many are in the hopper ahead of you. Yeah. Any questions about what's going to happen in the process and how we're going to deal with the results?
Well, I mean, I do have a lot of questions. I think one of the main questions is, how does the YDNA testing follow that paternal line? Like, how am I going to know who or where? I'm not really too, I guess, versed on it.
Well, I can tell you in broad strokes, and then when we get your test results back, we can look in detail. We can look at your results and see. But basically, when they come in, you're taking a 37 marker YDNA test, and these are Weister markers, and they are simply, let me share my screen again, and we'll go back to this one. So these are the markers. The names of the markers are along the top. This is the Sheldon project. I know it's a little bit hard to see. I'm not sure I can make that much bigger. But anyway, these values here, you're going to get a set of values for each of these first 37 markers. And depending on what those combination of values are, you're going to fall into a group, or you're going to be a singleton on your own. And you may match all of these in groups A, or you may match the people in group B, or you could be group C, or whatever, or you could end up matching somebody that's not named Sheldon at all. You could have, 3 matches with somebody named Dylan, and 1 with somebody named Davis, and 1 with somebody named Henderson. And at that point, then it's a matter of contacting those people and seeing where there might be some commonalities in terms of location. So it just depends on your results. And but it's going to be very evident to me immediately if you fall into one of our major Sheldon groupings. Right. And so when we get together again, we will look at your results and see where that leads us. So hopefully it will break down the wall in some sort of way and give you a place to start from.
No, I'm actually really excited. This is something that I feel has been a long time coming in my family. We have been almost like, it almost feels like stray dogs. We want to have something to belong to, or something that we believe in, and it almost seems like throughout the years and through losing certain people in the family line that it just kind of washed out. So yeah, I'm really excited to see what this can tell me and how it traces back to, just more of my ancestral history, because if I'm a British turncoat, that means that there's something going on the other side of the pond. There's a lot of really interesting Sheldon history when you start looking at the UK. I never really imagined that it would be such a, I guess the only real word to use is a cornucopia of different walks of life. You have some people that are, shipyard guys. You have some that are masters of check. You have some that are, sheep herders, or they make cutlery and silverware. So it's got a really interesting, there's just so much to it. It's
really kind of an anthropological study in terms of all the different places that people ended up. And we have, with the Sheldon genealogy, we have 2 major places in England in which the Sheldons have origins back in the 13th, 14th century. The one is up in Derbyshire, and the other is in Warwickshire near Birmingham. So those are the two major places that we know that they came from, but there could be surname adoptions elsewhere or other branches of the family that have gone astray. So we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll be back here in a few weeks with our next episode of Sheldon Genealogy. Hopefully this is helpful to somebody. And if you have questions, please drop us a line.
Yeah.
All right.
Look forward to meeting the rest of my family.
All